This is A-Dolla-Cents, the conversation in between gas and EVs, cold soaked and road tripped. I'm using the term road tripped here very lightly, as we did not have to DC fast charge or refill along the way. We simply drove 140 kilometers round trip, although it was well below freezing. Explaining cold soak, the car was simply parked outside during our cold spell where it was holding for a couple days, all day, day and night at -10 or so. Car was outside, unplugged. So not only for those road trips, but also plenty of my short trips, I was taking pictures of the trip screen and of course the dashboard in front of the driver and looking at all this data, and I was doing it for quite a while. Once the trips were captured, I then took a closer look. Here on this trip screen, you can see how far that trip was, how long it took, your efficiency, and it also breaks down where your energy went. The four categories are climate, driving, the accessories, and the exterior temperature when it has to warm its battery. It also breaks down a driving coach in the bottom. In front of the driver display, we have our range and our battery percentage, and on the other side, we simply have the odometer reading. Using the app, I'm also able to track all of the charging sessions, and for the most part, I've settled to try to go between 20 and 85. But if you click any of those charging sessions, you can see how long they took or when the car was actually plugged in and how much energy was delivered. We take those charging sessions and those trips that we have, we overlay them, and at some point we're going to talk about opportunity charging. I have the slowest charger, and looking at the energy delivered over half an hour and versus 40 minutes, these are the types of charges that might get you home. But really, with a level 2, you're talking about a deep charge, 8 hours. That's where these things really shine. Once the data was compiled, the column I'm looking at the most is the percent difference. We actually use way more battery than the trip computer thinks we're going to take. The green rows are charging, the orange rows are phantom drain. Again, this is well below freezing. Now, the phantom drain is really temperature dependent. You'll see it lose 20, but if it actually gets warmer, you actually gained some range just because the battery got warmer. So those charging sessions and the battery percentage and the trip distance was overlaid with the temperature that we were having. Looking at our historical data, like I mentioned, it was hovering at -10. And this is also when I was leaving the car outside and taking this longer than usual drive. Looking at our battery percentage and what it was actually saying over that time for our range based on the battery percentage, battery in blue, range in red, you can see that the phantom drain is shown by the car not moving and it's just decline in range. So just covering the basics, obviously gas cars, battery electric cars, they just use more energy when it's seriously cold. During this time here with the cold spell as well, I was in the car, preheating it, being comfortable, not at all driving around in the cold because I always have the option of getting home and plugging in every day. The reason I went and did this experiment is I do believe EVs are a cheaper way to travel when you have access to cheap electricity. This only comes from level 2 charging. How can we get more level 2 charging when not everyone owns their houses, when people live in apartment buildings? You know, and even in apartment buildings, what I find is even in this deep cold scenario, the amount of charge or battery percentage that's lost, even on the slowest charger, is equivalent to an extra 20 minutes or half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. It's not an extra hour of charging to make back up for the cold. My trips are mostly short, so I really don't use or need preconditioning for extra range or efficiency. That being said, before my much longer trips, I would plug the car in and have it preconditioned. Otherwise, I really don't need the range or extra energy going into the battery to warm it up just for a short trip where the battery is going to cool down in the parking lot at work for another 8 hours anyways. I really don't condition with my short trips. But people who are going to be parking outside, living in apartment buildings and such, they do need a place to have reliable charging. The electricity itself does not have to be free, but you do need access to level 2 charging in order for everyone to reap the benefits. So put in the infrastructure, get the chargers in. There are times for DC charging, but you really don't want to rely on that unless the chargers have to get to this other generation where they're in shopping centers or supermarket lots where you can put 200 or 300 miles in 15 minutes or half an hour while you're doing that weekly shopping where you're going to be anyway. You've got to be going to that place already in order for the opportunity charging to make sense. Truth is, until we can charge where we work or where we sleep reliably, which really should be the way, just buy a hybrid. It goes without saying that in summer weather, you get all this range back and the cars are crazy efficient. Sometimes you might even get by just by being able to buy the version of your car with a bigger battery or even just getting a faster level 2 charger at home. You'd be surprised how little change it actually takes to accommodate an EV for most people who go home to sleep every day for 8 or so hours or go to work for 8 or so hours. This can be done. Road trips, we barely take them, but the infrastructure is coming and the cars are getting better. I'd actually be the first to say that if you're actually going to go get one of these cars and road trip, buy the right one. The Mach-E won't be it. It would be something like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 if you can't afford a Porsche Taycan. If you'd like, I can tell you more about my charger install and how I got it with only 100 amp service. Before I go, you can pause here to see how much that trip cost in winter versus summer, or check out the difference if you had the DC fast charge instead. Use this QR code to try the calculator for yourself. See you next time.